Welcome to a video on the internet where I'll be stimulating your eyes and ears about creating your very own cartoon characters. I've been developing my cartoon characters, Camboy and Kirk, for about the last 6.5 years. You probably wouldn't be able to tell that I've been focusing on these characters for that long, but that's probably sort of a good thing. I've picked up a lot of what I like to think of as valuable insight about creating your own cartoon characters over the last 6.5 years. And I want to share a lot of the things that I've learned with you guys to hopefully save you guys some time or maybe inspire you to start creating your own cartoon characters. Without any more introduction, I just want to jump straight into this. So the very first thing is, what do they look like? When I created my characters, Camboy and Kirk, it came from a very personal experience. I didn't set out to give birth to them. They were more of an accident, kind of like I was, but that isn't always the case for everybody. The first exercise that I recommend is to start drawing simple shapes like circles, squares, and triangles, because you're not really trying to think too intricately about your character. If you want your character to be instantly recognizable, the silhouette is something that you want to spend a lot of time on. When I was designing Camboy, and more specifically designing Camboy's friend Kirk, I understood that Camboy was a lot more rectangular and held a lot more grays and less saturated colors. So when I designed Kirk, I wanted to go with the total opposite of rectangles and dark colors. I chose a circle and I experimented with a lot of different colors. At first he was green, then he was red, then he was yellow, but I officially settled on purple. It just looked right. It just really felt good on my eyes. You know, when you got the gray character and the purple, I don't know. I'm not really quite sure why, but when I looked at it, there was a little voice in the back of my head that was just like, yeah, that's it. That's the right color. Think of some of the most popular cartoon character duos like Gumball and Darwin. We've got Finn and Jake, SpongeBob and Patrick, Camboy and Kirk maybe. I bet you could have named all those characters just solely based on their silhouettes, right? Right, that's good. Now let's move on to the second step. So let's say you spent a couple of days, weeks, months, years, because it shouldn't matter how long it takes you to come up with these things. Take some pressure off yourself. I really recommend picking some of your favorite cartoons and start trying to imitate the characters that you've just developed in that art style. Let's say that you really like Adventure Time, right? Start trying to draw those characters in the same or similar art style as Adventure Times. There's nothing wrong with being inspired by other artists and thinking that your characters may fit in their universe or whatnot. You're really just trying to develop your art style through imitating their art. Really what you'll find is that as you're illustrating your characters and other people's art styles, you'll start to see how some people draw, their ears, or maybe how they draw eyes, mouths, all types of stuff. So imitating other people's art styles isn't stealing. There's a couple of things that you'll discover though as you try to illustrate in other styles, like that the villains in a lot of cartoons have pointier features. Pointier things are usually more aggressive. So let's think things like the father from Codenamed Kids Next Door. Let's think Ice King from Adventure Time. These guys all have sharper features. They're, reds and whatnot. I know Ice King is blue, but he's got his pointy his nose, his crown's got the points. All the jewels on it are very sharp. And you'll start to see that actually a lot of protagonists are usually illustrated with softer or rounder shapes. Like Steven from Steven Universe, he's rounder. Like Finn and Jake, they're rounder characters. Finn has his hat that's got his round ears. It's just important that you attempt to distinguish your villains from your protagonists, and maybe you're not thinking about developing, a story in a show, whatever, right? But if you want to make a bad guy or you want to make a good guy, sometimes it's important to remember that the villain should be sharper, maybe, and more aggressive, and that your protagonist maybe should be friendlier and more heroic looking. It's not really some type of law or rule that you're required to follow. Obviously, there's plenty of protagonists and antagonists that don't have sharper features and rounder features. They have a lot of mixed features. It definitely depends on your style, but those are just some guidelines that I like to follow when I'm developing my roster of characters for Camboy and Kirk's universe. A really good exercise I have for trying to draw in other people's art styles or trying to imitate different styles from different shows is to watch the show, right? Now, let's say that you're watching the show and you get about 5 minutes in and there's a scene that is particularly eye-catching or intriguing. I want you to pause the show on that frame, and I want you to draw that character that you see, or draw them in the pose or whatever that you see them in. Try to imitate that pose with your own cartoon character. So let's get to step 3. Why do they exist? Just like you and me, in real life, your characters need a reason to be alive. We all need something to drive us. Let's think about a couple of characters again from some other really popular cartoon series. Think about, for example, Mordecai and Rigby from Regular Show. Their goal in almost every episode is to avoid doing any real work under any circumstances, which leads them to get into insane things like giant gorilla monsters or entering different dimensions. Or Courage the Cowardly Dog, for example. It's about a dog that lives in the middle of nowhere where lots of crazy paranormal things happen to him, which usually leads him to having to protect his owners from just crazy weird things like cat ghosts in sewer rats or whatever, just all types of weird stuff, right? But him being in the middle of nowhere is what drives the plot. So really, step 3 is just trying to focus on giving your characters a reason to exist and trying to give them something to chase after, or just something to get them into nonsense every book or episode or whatever you're trying to do to drive the story forward. Everybody needs a reason to exist in real life, and everybody needs a reason to exist in fictional life. So finally, the 4th step to creating your very own cartoon characters is to focus on the little things. Now that you spent all this time developing their look and developing their reason for existing, you're going to want to start focusing on all the little things about your characters. If you've developed a duo like Camboy and Kirk, the next thing you want to do is start to try to compare and contrast them as individuals. So Camboy is a very curious and impulsive character who doesn't stop to read the sign above the big red button that says "Don't press" before he presses it. Kirk, however, is the type of individual who wants to stop, read, and assess that sign before he presses the big red button. They compare and contrast each other in that way because there may be situations that Camboy is usually getting the boys into, while Kirk is usually the one getting them out of it. Now, that's not the only type of way that the characters can compare and contrast or complement each other. There's millions of other ways that you can decide to have your characters get themselves into trouble and get themselves out of trouble. That's just how I've gone about it with my characters. Now, every character in every work of fiction is a little flawed, right? There is no cartoon character that is the perfect individual. My character Kirk, for example, is an overthinker who can become frustrated with Camboy's impulsiveness because Camboy gets them into all these predicaments that now Kirk has to figure out how to get them out of. However, Camboy's impulsiveness creates situations where Camboy can be envious of Kirk's intelligence. It keeps him from gaining Kirk's approval and keeps Camboy from being the hero at the end of the story. The little things are really a big deal. Those are the things that are going to make your character more iconic, more memorable, more relatable, and those are the things that you want to experiment with to bring your character or character duo closer to character iconic epicness. Before I end this, I really want to drill into your head that this stuff can take a lot of time. This stuff's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to go to bed one night and wake up with the perfect characters in your mind and the perfect story and the perfect reason for existing and the perfect illustration style. You might, I don't want to take that away from you if that's how you've been able to become successful, but this type of stuff could take a day, it could take a week, it could take a year, it could take 10 years. I've been doing my characters for the last 6.5 years, and I'm not embarrassed by it. But for a long time, I felt like something was wrong. Why is it taking so long? But I've learned to enjoy the process and not take everything so personally when I feel like I'm failing or maybe something I'm drawing isn't exactly right. I kind of go back to the basics and reassess, and then I come back to it and I just keep pushing forward. Really, you just got to keep pushing forward. So if you found this video to be helpful at all, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up because it'll help the video find its way into other people's recommendations. If you have any questions about any of the content you saw in this video, please feel free to contact me here on YouTube by dropping a comment down below. That also helps in the algorithm. Or you can slide into my Instagram DMs. You can give me a follow over there and you can get updates on whenever I make or share new content about Camboy and Kirk. If you want to be an absolute legend, you can go subscribe to me on Patreon to help me fund future Camboy and Kirk projects. I'm currently writing and illustrating a book or graphic novel or comic book. It depends on how many pages it's going to be. That's going to determine what I'm going to call it. But I also do stuff like t-shirts and keychains over there. I post updates there about the book progress and other creative stuff too. It's like a little Camboy and Kirk cult vibe over there. Or if that's not really your kind of thing, you could just subscribe and we could just be friends on there. With all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and end the video here, and I'm going to leave a list of my patrons here up on the screen. If you want to see your name up on the screen here, just go subscribe to my Patreon, and the next time I post a video, you'll see your name here. Thank you for exposing your eyes to this blue light, and I will see you guys in the next video. Love you.